right after you deliver the takeaway, there's no big decision here on what direction to go. You would always pretty much go to your questions. You do the takeaway. I don't know if we can help you in the same way. If I could ask you real quick, and then you just start asking a couple questions. You really want to just focus on either pain questions or current state questions. So some examples here for this exact sales message that we created for web design. How important is it for you to get more revenue out of your website? How important is it for you to get improved conversion rate? Do you need more website traffic? So those are some pain questions. Whether or not those are the right pain questions for, this particular example, that's another subject. But what I just want to show you here is this is where you start to ask pain questions, or you could ask current state questions, which are, basically the current state questions are kind of like, if you sold a car, the questions here would be, do you have a car today? What year is it? How many miles does it have? How is it running? How often do you usually replace your vehicle? How many people do you transport in your vehicle in terms of your family members, whatnot? Those are examples of current state questions. Every salesperson has different current state questions. Whether you ask your pain questions or current state questions, which ones you ask first, or if you mix them together, that's really a case-by-case basis for each individual salesperson. And it could change from from calling one person in an organization to a different title or whatever, or maybe they answer one of your questions one way and you flip over to asking another. But the main thing here is that you can see this is the centerpiece of the call, and you really have time to ask probably 2 to 4 questions here. You see there's a bunch of questions here, and if you really built out your pain questions, you'd have more than what's here, but you have time for about 2 to 4 questions, and the number of questions you can ask kind of depends on how the prospect answers your question and any follow-up to each question. But you want to keep in mind that you only have 2 to 5 minutes to work with, so you're not trying to ask all of these. Your goal would be to basically close for the next step in the process, which is your conversation, and then you can get back to any questions that are here that you did not ask. After you ask your questions, the call can go in a few different directions. This is where you're starting to bounce around according to the different directions that the call can go. Now, that can, without what I'm going to show you next, that could seem a little complicated, but hopefully what I show you right now makes it very simple. The way that this makes it simple is that you can see that you have a whole list of questions, and there's a lot of ways that a prospect can answer you and different answers that can come back in from those questions. So it can be difficult to know, okay, if you get this answer, go here. If you get this answer, go here. So what I want to teach you here is that there's 3 different categories of answers that you can get back. And it's kind of like getting back to like the red light, green light, yellow light. It's similar to that, which is you can get a hot response back, which is that there is a problem or pain. Something's not working well. And you can see here with the green, this is good news for the prospect. This is like going to a casino and you hit jackpot on the slot machine and the sirens are going off and you can see the prospect's not happy. And the reason why this is really good is because when something's not working well and your product can solve that problem, then that, first of all, in the long run, that makes it much easier for you to generate a lead and close a deal. But in the short run with this process, your goal is not necessarily to close the sale, but it's to close for the next step in the process, which is talking and having a conversation. And so if there's a problem that your product can fix, you have immediate justification for talking more. And I'll show you how you close for that. And that's really why you're asking pain questions. And your current state questions could identify this as well. But what you're looking for in all of your questions is, are things good, okay, or could they be better? And if they could be better, then there's something not working well, and that's a hot response. Let me show you the other 2 scenarios. The other scenario is that you get a neutral response. And this is either where the prospect says, things are okay, or the prospect says, I'm not sure, right? So it's not good or bad. It's just kind of neutral. And you could look at this as like a yellow light. The third scenario is a cold response. And so this is where you ask a pain question and your prospect is like, yeah, everything's great. We love what we're doing today, or we just bought something or whatever. And you can see there it's not great for the salesperson and the prospect is happy. So those are 3 categories. And when you ask a question, it's real easy. Instead of thinking about what did the prospect answer and what does that mean to me, you can try to think about, okay, was that a hot response, neutral, or cold? And so depending on which response you get can determine where you go next in the cold call process. So let's say that you get a good response, which is a hot answer. And so this is where you're happy, the prospect isn't feeling great because they have pain or a problem. When this happens, you're skipping ahead in the cold call process here. You're basically skipping the next step, which is pain points. Actually, what you're really doing is you're skipping ahead to the close because they said, oh, it's not working well or it could be working better. That's justification for talking more. You're going to skip ahead to close for talking more. Now, the thing here is before you close for talking more, you want to build a little bit of interest on who you are and how you can help. Because keep in mind, in this cold call process, it's all been about the prospect. All you've maybe mentioned is your company name up until this point. So this is where we talk a little bit about us. This is the 20% on us. And so instead of skipping all the way to the close, we're skipping ahead to the product and company info step. I'll show you what that step looks like when we naturally progress to that, but there is a skip ahead. Now, if you look at those smiley, the color emoticons in the top right, the skip ahead makes the most sense when you get a bingo, right? A good match on a hot answer. But if you get a neutral answer, you could skip ahead too. So, if the prospect says, I don't know, I'm not sure, or things are okay, you could still treat that as justification for talking more because, hey, who wants things to be okay? If things are okay, we can make them better than okay. So neutral can be justification for skipping ahead. But if you get neutral or cold and you kind of want to try to find that justification for closing and find a hot response, you can progress to the next step in the process, which are pain points. The pain points is where you actually share some of the problems you're looking for. And so a way you might transition to the pain points is you might say something like, oh, well, sounds like things are going pretty good over there. So you're beginning to maybe kind of walk away. But before you do that, you progress to the pain points.